The Empire had conquered 47 star systems. Their war fleets were the largest in the known galaxy. They had destroyed civilizations that were old when humanity still lived in caves. No species had ever stood against them and survived. But there was one name they spoke only in whispers, one name that made their soldiers look over their shoulders in fear, one name that commanders refused to say out loud. Cole. Commander stood in the great hall of the Council of Scales. The room was dark, lit only by the pale blue glow of holographic screens. 12 counselors sat in a half-circle before her, their scaled faces hidden in shadow. They were the rulers of the Empire, the most powerful beings in 47 systems. And they were afraid. "Play the recording," the High Counselor ordered. The holographic screen flickered to life, watched as grainy footage appeared, pulled from the emergency beacon of a dying ship. The footage showed a corridor inside a transport vessel. Bodies lay on the floor. Soldiers, armed and armored, the best warriors the Empire could produce. All of them were dead. And walking through the corridor, stepping over their bodies, was a single human male. He was not large by human standards. He moved with a limp and his left arm hung useless at his side. Blood ran down his face from a wound on his head. The blood was red, impossibly red, brighter than anything had ever seen. In his right hand, he held a piece of broken metal. It was not a weapon. It was just a piece of the ship he had torn free with his bare hands, but he had used it to kill 12 soldiers in that corridor alone. The footage ended. The room was silent. 93, the High Counselor said. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. He killed 93 of our warriors on that transport, some with weapons he took from the dead, some with pieces of the ship, some with nothing but his hands. Said nothing. She watched the frozen image of the human on the screen. His eyes stared forward, empty of everything except a cold determination that made her scales itch. He was a prisoner, another counselor said. He was in chains, he was injured, and still he killed 93 of our best soldiers and escaped. Howe asked, how did he get free of his chains? The counselors looked at each other. Finally, one of them spoke. We do not know. The guards reported that he was secured. The next thing they knew, he was among them and they were dying. Turned back to the screen. She had hunted many dangerous prey in her career. She had tracked criminals across star systems. She had captured generals and assassins and terrorists. She was the best hunter the Empire had ever produced. But she had never hunted anything like this. Who is he? She asked. Her lieutenant stepped forward. He was young for an officer, his scales still bright green with youth. He held a data pad in his hands. His name is Cole, said. Nicholas Cole. He was a sergeant in the Human Colonial Marine Corps. He was captured 8 months ago during a battle at the station. How was he captured? His unit was protecting civilian transports during an evacuation. The humans were losing the battle. Most of their soldiers were dead. Cole ordered his remaining men to hold the line while the transports escaped. Paused, looking at his data pad. He fought for 6 hours. When his ammunition ran out, he fought with his knife. When his knife broke, he fought with his hands. He only surrendered when all his soldiers were dead and the last transport had escaped. Felt something cold move through her chest. She had fought humans before during the war. She knew they were dangerous, but this was something different. What happened after his capture? She asked. Hesitated. He looked at the counselors, then back at. He was sent to the interrogation division, he said carefully. They wanted information about human military positions, defensive codes, fleet movements. And he did not talk. For how long? 8 months, Commander. They worked on him for 8 months. He did not give them anything. The room was very quiet. Knew what the interrogation division did to prisoners. She had seen their work before. Most beings broke within days. The strongest might last a few weeks. 8 months was impossible. What methods did they use? She asked. All of them. Closed her eyes, she could imagine it. The pain, the fear, the endless days and nights of suffering, and through all of it this human had remained silent. Why did they stop? She asked. They did not stop, said. They gave up. The senior interrogator said that breaking this human was impossible. He recommended sending him to the mining colonies on Prime. He said that labor and starvation would destroy what torture could not. But he escaped before reaching the colonies. Yes, Commander. During a transfer between ships, he killed the guards, took control of a shuttle, and disappeared into the outer territories. Opened her eyes and looked at the frozen image on the screen. The human stared back at her, his face covered in blood, his eyes full of cold fire. What do you know about his personal life? She asked. Checked his data pad. He has a wife, her name is. She lives on a human colony world called Frontier, and he has a daughter. A daughter? Yes, born 3 months after his capture. He has never met her. Her name is Lily. Felt that cold feeling in her chest again. She understood now. She understood why this human had not broken, why he had survived 8 months of torture, why he had killed 93 soldiers with nothing but his will and a piece of broken metal. He was not fighting to survive. He was fighting to go home. The interrogators knew about his family, continued. They used it against him. They showed him footage of his wife and daughter being killed. They told him they were dead. Was it true? No, the footage was fake. His family is alive, but he does not know that. Turned to face the council. You want me to hunt this human, she said. It was not a question. The High Counselor leaned forward. His old eyes gleamed in the blue light. You are our best hunter, Commander. You have never failed. Bring us this human. Bring him back alive if you can. Dead if you must, but bring him back. Looked at the screen one more time. The human called Cole stared back at her from the frozen image, his eyes promising death to anyone who stood in his way. I will find him, she said. But even as she spoke the words, she felt something she had not felt in many years. Doubt. She walked out of the council chamber with at her side. The corridors of the Imperial Station were empty at this hour. Their footsteps echoed on the metal floors. Prepare my ship, she ordered. We leave within the hour. Yes, Commander. Where do we begin the search? Thought about the question. Where would a wounded, hunted human go? He could not return to human space. The borders were too heavily guarded. He would need supplies, medical treatment, time to heal. He will hide, she said. He will find a place where the Empire does not look. A dead world, perhaps, or a station in the outer territories where questions are not asked. That could be anywhere in a dozen systems. Then we will search a dozen systems. Stopped walking and turned to face her lieutenant. This human has survived things that would kill anyone else. He will not make mistakes. He will not leave obvious trails. We will have to be patient. Nodded, but she could see the doubt in his eyes. Commander, he said quietly, what if we find him and he will not surrender? What if he fights? Thought about the footage she had just watched. 93 dead soldiers. A human walking through a corridor of corpses with nothing but a piece of broken metal and the cold determination to reach his family. Then we will discover, she said, why the Empire whispers his name in terror. Tracked the human called Cole for 3 weeks. She started at the place where he had escaped, the wreckage of the transport shuttle floating in the darkness between stars. The bodies of the crew were still there, frozen in the vacuum of space. She studied each one carefully, looking for clues about how the human had killed them. Most had died quickly, broken necks, crushed throats. The human had not wasted time. He had moved through the ship like a ghost, killing before anyone could raise an alarm. But one body was different, a young soldier barely old enough to wear the uniform. Cole had killed him with a single blow to the head, fast and clean, no suffering, no fear. Looked at the dead soldier for a long time, then she moved on. The next clue came from a moon called IV. A patrol vessel had stopped there to investigate a distress signal. They found nothing but an empty ship and a broken transmitter. The crew reported the signal as a false alarm and continued on their way. 3 days later, another patrol found the first vessel drifting in space. The crew was dead. Same method as the transport. Fast kills, no warning, no survivors. Cole had used the distress signal as bait. Stood in the patrol vessel, surrounded by dead soldiers, and felt a cold respect for her prey. This human was not just strong. He was smart. He planned ahead. He used his enemies against themselves. Commander said, "I found something." She followed him to the cargo hold. The supplies had been searched. Emergency rations were missing. Medical kits were gone, but what caught her attention was the navigation computer. Someone had accessed it, and they had searched for information about the outer territories, about the empty spaces between space and human space. He was trying to go home. "He cannot make it," said. "The distance is too great. He would need fuel supplies, a ship fast enough to outrun our patrols." "He knows that," replied, "but he is going to try anyway." They followed his trail to Station, a trading post on the edge of civilized space. It was a place where criminals and smugglers gathered, where questions were not asked and credits bought silence. Walked through the crowded streets, her uniform drawing fearful glances from the station's residents. Followed close behind, his hand on his weapon. "People are watching us," he said quietly. "Let them watch. We are looking for information, not a fight." She found what she was looking for in a drinking establishment near the docks. A merchant sat alone in a corner, his hands shaking around a cup of bitter liquid. His name was, and he had made the mistake of trying to turn Cole into the local garrison. Sat down across from him. The merchant looked up, and she saw something in his eyes that she recognized. "Terror." "Tell me what happened," she said. His hands shook harder. The liquid in his cup spilled onto the table. "I saw him in the lower levels," he whispered. "Just a glimpse. A human moving through the shadows. I knew who he was. Everyone knows about the demon who escaped from the prison ships." "What did you do?" "I went to the garrison. I told them where he was hiding. They sent 12 soldiers to capture him." "And?" Closed his eyes. "I heard the screams, and then silence. When I went to look, I found the soldiers. They were all dead, and the human was standing there looking at me." Leaned forward. "But he did not kill you." "No," opened his eyes. They were wet with tears. "He walked toward me. I thought I was going to die. I fell to my knees and begged for my life. I told him I was sorry, that I was just scared, that I had a family." "What did he say?" "He said he had a family too, a wife and a daughter. He said he was going to see them again, and nothing in the galaxy was going to stop him." His voice broke. "Then he hit me just once. When I woke up, he was gone." Sat back in her chair. The merchant could have been killed easily. Cole had every reason to kill him, but he had shown mercy to a frightened man who had betrayed him. This was not the behavior of a demon. She left the drinking establishment and walked through the station's corridors, thinking about what she had learned. Her people had called Cole a monster, a creature of pure violence. But the more she learned about him, the more she saw something else. She saw a soldier, a husband, a father, a man pushed beyond all limits of endurance who still held onto his humanity. Back on her ship, she accessed the classified files from the interrogation division. She had to use her highest security codes to open them. What she found made her stomach twist. The reports were detailed, every session was recorded, every method was documented. Pain, fear, isolation, drugs, they had tried everything. And through all of it, Cole had remained silent. But that was not what caught her attention. It was the notes from the senior interrogator, a named who was famous for breaking even the strongest prisoners. Subject displays unusual resistance to pain, the first note read. Recommend increasing intensity. Subject remains uncooperative after 40 days. Recommend psychological pressure. Family leverage approved. Showed subject fabricated footage of wife and daughter being executed. Subject displayed extreme emotional response, but still refused to provide information. The final note was different from the others. It was written in a shaking hand, as if it had been struggling to hold his pen. Subject attempted escape during final session, killed 4 guards before being subdued. Subject showed no fear of death. Subject shows no response to any form of pressure. I recommend transfer to mining colonies. I refuse to continue working with this subject. Read the note 3 times, then she closed the file. Had interrogated thousands of prisoners over his career. He had broken warriors, spies, soldiers from a dozen species, and Cole had made him afraid. "Commander," said from the doorway, "we have received a report from the Drift." The Drift was a vast field of asteroids and dead moons on the edge of space. It was the only route to human territory that was not heavily patrolled. If Cole was trying to reach his family, he would have to go through the Drift. What does the report say? A mining station in the Drift reported a break-in 3 days ago. Someone stole fuel cells, emergency supplies, and a single-person shuttle. Felt a spark of excitement. She was getting closer. "He is making his run," she said. "He is going to try to reach human space. Should I alert the border patrols?" Hesitated. If she alerted the patrols, Cole would be caught. He would be returned to the interrogation division. They would try again to break him, and when they failed, they would execute him. She thought about the merchant on station, spared because he was afraid. She thought about the young soldier on the transport, killed quickly without suffering. She thought about a human who had endured 8 months of torture without breaking because somewhere, far away, a wife and daughter were waiting for him. "No," she said, "do not alert the patrols." Stared at her. "Commander, I will find him myself. Set course for the Drift." She turned away before could see the doubt on her face. She did not know what she would do when she found Cole. She did not know if she would capture him or kill him or something else entirely. But she knew one thing for certain. She wanted to meet this human face to face. She wanted to look into his eyes and understand how a creature could suffer so much and still remain unbroken. The ship entered the Drift as the stars wheeled overhead and sat alone in her quarters, staring at a frozen image on her screen. A human covered in blood, walking through a corridor of death, his eyes burning with cold fire. Soon, she thought, soon I will understand. She found him on a dead world called Ash. The planet had been a human colony once before the came. Now it was nothing but dust and ruins. The cities were gone, reduced to broken walls and empty streets. The sky was gray with clouds of ash that never cleared. Nothing lived here anymore. But Cole was here. Her sensors had detected the heat signature of a small fire in what remained of a settlement. He was hiding in the ruins, waiting for the right moment to continue his journey. Landed her shuttle 300 meters from the settlement. Moved to follow her, but she held up her hand. "Stay here," she ordered. "Commander, he is dangerous. You cannot go alone." "I am aware of what he is." Checked her weapon, then put it back in its holster. "If I am not back in 1 hour, return to the fleet and report my death." "Commander." "That is an order, Lieutenant." She stepped out of the shuttle and walked toward the ruins. The ash crunched under her boots. The wind was cold, carrying the smell of old death and forgotten memories. She found the building where Cole was hiding. It had been a school once, she realized. The walls were covered with faded pictures drawn by human children, suns and stars and happy families holding hands. Now the roof was half collapsed and the windows were empty holes. but a thin trail of smoke rose from somewhere inside. Stopped at the entrance. Cole, she called out, I know you are in there. Silence. I am commander of the Imperial fleet. I am coming in. I am not here to fight. She walked through the entrance, moving slowly, keeping her hands visible. The inside of the building was dark, lit only by the gray light coming through the broken windows. She followed the smoke to a small room at the back. Cole was sitting against the wall. He looked worse than she had expected. The footage she had seen was 3 weeks old, and in that time he had lost weight. His face was thin and covered with new scars. His eyes were sunken, surrounded by dark circles. He had not slept in days, maybe weeks. But his eyes were clear. They watched her with an intensity that made her want to step back. He did not move. He did not reach for a weapon. He just sat there watching her. Commander, he said. His voice was rough, like stones grinding together. I know who you are. You are the one they send when they want something found. You have heard of me. Every prisoner in space has heard of you. They say you never fail. They say you always bring back your prey. They are correct. Cole laughed. It was not a happy sound. Then you are here to capture me, to bring me back to the interrogation chambers. Did not answer. Instead, she looked around the room. He had made a small fire from broken furniture. A half-empty can of stolen rations sat beside him. His stolen shuttle was hidden somewhere nearby, she knew, waiting for him to continue his journey. But what caught her attention was the floor. Scratched into the dust with a piece of metal were 2 words. Lily. He had written his family's names in the dirt of this dead world, so he would not forget them. So he would have something to hold on to in the darkness. How long since you slept? She asked. Cole looked at her with surprise. I do not remember, he said. When did you last eat a full meal? Also do not remember. Lowered herself to the floor, sitting across from him. She moved slowly, keeping her movements calm. He watched her with suspicious eyes, but he did not attack. You could have killed that merchant on station, she said. He betrayed you to the garrison. 12 soldiers died because of him, but you let him live. He was not a soldier, he was just afraid. You have killed many who were not soldiers. Cole's jaw tightened. I have killed those who stood between me and my family. I will kill anyone who tries to stop me from reaching them. Studied him, the Empire had called him a monster, a demon, a creature of pure violence. But sitting across from him now, she saw something different. She saw exhaustion. She saw pain. She saw grief carved into every line of his face. And she saw hope, small and fragile and stubborn, burning in his eyes like a fire that refused to die. Your wife and daughter are alive, she said. Cole went very still. His breath stopped. His eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her scales tingle. What did you say? The footage the interrogators showed you was fake. Standard psychological warfare. Your wife and your daughter, Lily, are alive. They live in a settlement called New Boston on the human colony world of Frontier. His hands started to shake. He pressed them against the floor to stop them, but they would not stop. You are lying. I am not. I accessed the classified files from the interrogation division. The footage was fabricated. Your family was never harmed. Cole stared at her. Tears were forming in his eyes, but he did not let them fall. Why are you telling me this? Was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her life, about the years she had spent hunting people for the Empire. She thought about all the fathers and mothers and children she had captured and sent to their deaths. She thought about the pictures on the walls of this dead school, drawn by human children who had been killed or enslaved when they came. Because I am tired, she said quietly. I am tired of hunting men who should be home with their daughters. Cole stared at her. The tears were falling now, running down his face. I do not understand. Your people destroyed my world. Your people tortured me for 8 months. Why would you help me? Stood up, she walked to the window and looked out at the gray sky of ash. I was a child when the Empire conquered my world, she said. There were a small species, weak, unable to fight back. The Empire gave us a choice, serve or die. We chose to serve. She turned to face him. I became what they made me, a weapon, a hunter. I told myself that I was protecting order, protecting peace. But I have hunted too many fathers, too many mothers, too many people whose only crime was refusing to kneel. Her voice grew quiet. And I am tired of pretending that obedience is the same as honor. Cole was silent. He looked at her with eyes that held no hatred, only confusion. What are you going to do? He asked. Made her decision. It was not a hard decision. It felt like the first honest choice she had made in a very long time. I am going to take you home. Cole stared at her. You will be executed for treason. Perhaps. Your career will be destroyed. I know. Then why? Looked at the names scratched in the dust. Lily, a wife and daughter waiting on a distant world for a man they thought was dead. Because somewhere out there is a little girl who has never met her father, and I have the power to change that. She extended her hand toward him. Cole looked at her hand. He looked at her face. He looked at the names on the floor. Then slowly, painfully, he reached out and took her hand. She helped him to his feet. He was weak, barely able to stand, but his grip was strong and his eyes were alive with something she had not seen before. Hope. My shuttle is 300 meters east, she said. Can you walk? I can walk. They left the ruins together, the commander and the human soldier, walking through the ash of a dead world toward something neither of them had expected. A chance at redemption. A chance at home. The journey to human space would take 12 days. Set the course and engage the autopilot. Her ship was fast, one of the best in the Imperial fleet, but the distance was vast. They would have to cross the drift, pass through 3 unmapped sectors, and avoid every patrol the Empire had placed along the border. It was a dangerous journey, but looking at the human sitting in the co-pilot seat, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead, she knew he would make it. Cole slept for the first 2 days. It was not normal sleep. It was the deep, empty sleep of someone whose body had finally given up fighting. He did not move. He barely breathed. Watched him with concern, checking his vital signs every few hours. Is he dying? The lieutenant asked. No, replied. He is recovering. His body has been running on nothing but willpower for months. Now that he is safe, it is finally allowing itself to rest. Humans are strange creatures. Yes, they are. On the 3rd day, Cole woke up. He ate carefully, taking small bites of the rations provided. She noticed that he saved half of each meal, hiding it in his pocket. You do not need to do that, she said. There is plenty of food. Cole looked at her with tired eyes. Old habit. In the mines, they only fed us once every 2 days. You learned to save what you could. You are not in the mines anymore. I know. He took another small bite, but some habits are hard to break. As the days passed, he began to talk. Not much at first, just small pieces of information, fragments of memory, but slowly, piece by piece, he told her his story. He told her about how they had met at a military training facility on Mars, the red planet of the human solar system. She had been a medic, he had been a Marine. They had hated each other at first. She thought I was arrogant, Cole said, a small smile crossing his face. And she was right. I was 22 years old and thought I knew everything about the universe. What changed? We got stationed together during the incident. Rebels attacked our base. I got shot in the leg. She dragged me 2 kilometers to the medical station while I complained the whole way. His smile grew wider. By the time we reached the station, I was in love with her. I did not tell her that, of course. I waited another 3 months before I worked up the courage to ask her to dinner. Listened quietly. She had never had a relationship like the one Cole described, did not marry for love. They were assigned partners based on genetic compatibility. The idea of choosing someone, of falling in love, was strange to her. But listening to Cole talk about his wife, she understood why humans fought so hard to protect their families. It was not just duty. It was not just instinct. It was love. "Tell me about your daughter," she said. Cole's face changed. The small smile faded, replaced by something deeper, something painful. "I have never met her," he said quietly. "I was captured when was 6 months pregnant. I did not even know if the baby was born until I received a message from a sympathetic servant in the prison." "What did the message say?" "3 words, safe, girl." His voice cracked. "I named her Lily. That was the name we had chosen if the baby was a girl." "How did you survive after that, knowing your daughter was out there growing up without you?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. "I made a promise," he said finally. "I promised myself that I would see her, I would hold her, I would tell her that her father loved her from the moment he knew she existed, and I would do whatever it took to keep that promise." He looked at with those burning eyes. "That is why I survived the interrogation. That is why I escaped from the transport. That is why I will do whatever it takes to reach her." Understood. This was not a man who fought out of hatred or anger. This was a man who fought for love, and that, she realized, was far more dangerous. On the 5th day, Cole asked her the question she had been expecting. "Why are you doing this? Your empire will execute you for treason." "Perhaps." "That is not an answer." Looked out the window at the passing stars. "I told you about my people. We were conquered when I was a child. We had no choice but to serve the empire." "That does not explain why you are helping me." "No, it does not." She turned to face him. "I have served the empire for 40 years. I have done terrible things. I have hunted people like you across the galaxy and brought them back to face torture and death. I told myself it was necessary. I told myself it was my duty." Her voice grew quiet. "But I have always known the truth. I was afraid. Afraid of what the empire would do to me if I refused. Afraid of dying. And now I am more afraid of living the rest of my life knowing I could have helped a father reach his daughter and chose not to." Cole was silent. Then he said something that surprised her. "What will you do when we reach human space? You cannot return to the empire." "I do not know. I expect your people will imprison me, perhaps execute me. I am a commander. I have fought against humans in battle. I am responsible for deaths." "You did not kill those people. The empire did." "I was a tool of the empire. The result is the same." Cole shook his head. "I have spent 8 months being tortured by. I have killed more of your people than I can count. But I know the difference between a soldier following orders and a monster who enjoys causing pain." He looked at her steadily. "You are not a monster, Commander. You are someone who made a choice, the same choice I would make in your position." Felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. "Gratitude. Your people accept defectors," Cole continued. "Humanity does not conquer, we do not enslave, but we do protect those who need protecting. You would speak for me, after everything my people did to you." "You are not your people, Commander." He met her eyes. "You chose to help a man get home to his family. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Looked at him, this human who had endured so much, this soldier who had every reason to hate her and her kind. He was offering her something she had never expected. A future. On the 7th day, they entered the unmapped sectors between and human space. The stars were strange here, distant and cold. No ships traveled these routes. No stations existed. They were alone. Maintained the ship while and Cole talked. They talked about war and peace, about duty and honor, about the things that make life worth living. They talked about families and friends and hopes for the future. And slowly, something changed between them. They were no longer hunter and prey. They were no longer enemies. They were allies. On the 10th day, they saw the first human patrol ships in the distance. Cole stood at the window, staring at the lights of his people's vessels. His hands were shaking. "We are almost there," said. He did not answer. His eyes were fixed on the lights, on the ships of his homeland, on the path that would lead him to his wife and daughter. "Cole!" He turned to look at her. Tears were running down his face. "I am going to see my daughter," he whispered. "I am going to hold my little girl." Smiled, it was a strange feeling. She had not smiled in a very long time. "Yes," she said, "you are." They flew toward the human ships together, toward the border between worlds, toward the beginning of everything new. The human patrol ships surrounded them within minutes. Counted 12 vessels, all armed, all pointing their weapons at her ship. She had expected this. A commander's vessel entering human space was an act of war. The communication system crackled to life. "Unidentified vessel, you are entering human-controlled space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with deadly force." The voice was professional, calm, and very serious. Recognized the tone of a soldier ready to fight. Cole leaned toward the microphone. "This is Sergeant Nicholas Cole, 4th Colonial Marines, Service number 7739 Alpha. I am returning home." Silence. Watched the patrol ships. They had not powered down their weapons, but they had not fired either. They were waiting. Then a different voice came through the communication system, younger, shocked. "Cole, Nick Cole, is that really you?" "Yes, Captain, it is me." "Good Lord, we thought you were dead. Command declared you killed in action 8 months ago. There was a funeral, your wife." The voice trailed off. Cole's hands were gripping the console so hard his knuckles had turned white. "My wife," he said carefully, "is she still on Frontier? Is she safe?" Yes, she is safe. She is in New Boston, she and your daughter both." Cole closed his eyes. A single tear ran down his cheek. "Thank you," he whispered. The voice on the other end was quiet for a moment. Then it asked the question had been dreading. "Cole, what about the ship? What is going on here?" Cole opened his eyes and looked at. "Commander," he said clearly, "she is the reason I am alive. She found me. She chose to help me. She is requesting asylum in human space." More silence. Could imagine the discussions happening on the patrol ships. A commander defecting was unprecedented. They would be suspicious. They would be afraid. She did not blame them. Finally, the first voice returned, the professional one. "Sergeant Cole, you are cleared to proceed to Frontier. A military escort will meet you in orbit. Commander, your request for asylum has been provisionally accepted. You will be taken into custody upon landing and held pending a full investigation." Nodded, even though they could not see her. "I understand," she said. "I will cooperate fully. Proceed to the following coordinates. Do not deviate from the assigned course. Welcome to human space." The communication ended. The patrol ships moved into formation around them, escorting them toward the distant blue-green world of Frontier. Cole guided the ship carefully, following the assigned course. His eyes never left the planet ahead. "Frontier," he said quietly. "I never thought I would see it again." "Tell me about it." He smiled. "It is a beautiful world, blue oceans, green forests. The sky is clear most days, and I used to talk about retiring there someday, building a house by the ocean, raising children." His voice cracked. "I missed 3 years of Lily's life. Her first words, her first steps, her first birthday, I missed everything. You will not miss what comes next." "No," his smile returned stronger now. I will not. They entered orbit around Frontier 2 hours later. The planet was even more beautiful up close. Clouds drifted across blue oceans. Cities sparkled along the coastlines. Ships moved in and out of orbit, carrying people and cargo and hope. Look down at this world that humans had built from nothing. They had arrived here as colonists, far from their home, surrounded by dangers they did not understand, and they had survived. They had built cities and families and lives. This was what humans did. They built, they grew, they refused to give up. The escort ships guided them to a military landing platform on the outskirts of a city called New Boston. As the ship descended through the clouds, Cole stared out the window with an intensity that made his heart ache. "What does she look like?" asked. "Your daughter." "I do not know, I have never seen her, but has brown hair and brown eyes. Maybe Lily has the same." "You will know soon." The ship landed with a gentle bump. Outside, could see rows of military vehicles and soldiers in human uniforms. They were taking no chances with a commander. "Move to the door." "I will go first," he said. "They may be more willing to talk to a subordinate." Shook her head. "No, we go together, all of us." The door opened. Bright sunlight flooded in, warm and golden, stepped out onto the landing platform, followed by Cole. The soldiers surrounded them immediately. Weapons were raised. Commands were shouted, kept her hands visible and her movements slow. But then something happened that made everyone stop. A woman pushed through the line of soldiers. She was small, with brown hair and tired eyes. She was wearing a simple blue dress, and in her arms was a little girl with the same brown hair. "Cole and Lily." The soldiers tried to stop her, but she pushed past them. She did not see the guns. She only saw one thing. Her husband. Cole walked toward her, then he ran. They met in the middle of the landing platform. He swept them both into his arms, his wife and his daughter, holding them so tightly it looked like he would never let go. Was crying, great sobs that shook her whole body. She was saying something but could not hear the words. It did not matter. The meaning was clear. You came back to me." Lily looked up at her father with curious eyes. She was 3 years old, small and perfect, with her mother's face and her father's stubborn jaw. She did not understand who this man was. She did not know why her mother was crying. She reached up and touched Cole's face. "Mommy crying," she said. Laughed through her tears. "Happy tears, baby. These are happy tears." Cole looked down at his daughter. His face was wet with tears, but he was smiling. Smiling like a man who had walked through fire and found paradise on the other side. "Hello, Lily," he said, his voice breaking. "I am your daddy. I am so sorry it took me so long to find you." Lily looked at him seriously. Then she patted his face with her small hand. "Daddy crying too?" "Yes, baby, Daddy is crying too." He pulled them both close again, burying his face in his hair, holding his daughter against his chest. The soldiers had lowered their weapons. Even they could not remain unmoved by what they were seeing. Cole looked up and met his eyes across the platform. "Thank you," he mouthed. Inclined her head. She felt tears on her own face, strange and unfamiliar. She had not cried in 40 years. The military officers approached her carefully. They took her weapons. They placed restraints on her wrists. She did not resist. "Commander," one of them said, "you are being taken into custody pending investigation. Do you understand?" "I understand." "You will be treated fairly. That is the human way." Looked at the officer. He was young, barely older than, with kind eyes and a nervous expression. He was afraid of her, she realized, but he was still treating her with respect. This was humanity. This was what the Empire had failed to understand. Humans were not weak because they showed mercy. They were strong because they chose to. As the officers led her away, she looked back one more time. Cole was still holding his family. was laughing now, her tears drying in the sunlight. And Lily was playing with her father's face, touching his nose and his ears and his chin, learning the shape of the man who had fought across the galaxy to find her. Had hunted many prey in her life. She had captured generals and criminals and soldiers. She had never failed. But this was not a failure. This was the only victory that mattered. She had seen a human unbroken. She had seen a father return to his family. She had seen love triumph over empire. And as the soldiers led her toward an uncertain future, felt something she had never felt before. Peace. The war between Inhumans would continue. There would be more battles, more deaths, more suffering. But somewhere on the colony world of Frontier, a little girl would grow up knowing her father. A family that had been torn apart would be whole again. And that was enough. In the years that followed, the story of Cole would spread across human space. They would call him a hero, a legend, a man who could not be broken. But Cole never wanted to be a legend. He wanted to be a father. And now finally he was. The story ends where all good stories end, not with war but with love, not with death but with life, not with an empire but with a family. Lily Cole. Home at last.